webinar. This one's an exciting one. Just to give you some context. So we had a fantastic webinar about a month ago with the Venerable Susan. And it came up in the presentation, this really novel concept of doing this donor discovery meeting, where someone representing an organization, whether it be a director of development, a fundraiser, someone in a leadership position who's responsible of really cultivating and excavating, this new word that we're using now because of Susan, really excavating donors' passions, this idea, this concept of really just, hey, bring your philanthropists onto a call and why don't you just ask them what they care about and what makes them tick? And I was looking at the faces and everyone on the last call, and there was a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Like, is that something that's really feasible? Is that something that really can do? It takes some real guts to really step up into that motion. And while we were in the Q&A, I said, you know what? Let's do it, and let's do it live, and let's do it together with our audience of those that have joined last time, and then we see now we have a nice large crowd here today. So without further ado, we're going to pass it over to Susan. This is a real life. It's a surprise who the philanthropist is, so I don't even know, and I'm not going to guess which one of you it is, but we'll let Susan do that. But what we're viewing here today is we're going to be, nonprofit professionals on the wall, fly on the wall, on a real live excavation call with Susan and a philanthropist. And I think the takeaways here are obviously things that we can learn in this very sensitive yet very powerful dialogue, and also perhaps mimic this on our own. I think the most important thing, what I'd like to see, is that the courage is built with each and every one of us individually to be able to do this on our own. At the end of the day, as fundraisers, our goal is to bring the passions and the impact of our donors and our contributors and bring that to life. So what I'd love to see all of us is to really, for this to be a courage builder, for this to really say, hey, I now feel that this might be something in some way or another that I might be able to do on my own. So without further ado, take two with Susan Kramer. And thank you everyone for joining us. Obviously, we're going to have some Q&A at the end. So feel free to write down your questions either on a notepad or in the chat section as well. You can ask it there. So without further ado, Susan, take it away.
Thank you. And Rabbi Khan, I just see you here on the screen. So hello, and thank you for everyone for being here. Thank you. Some friends, old friends, some new friends. And before I jump in with our philanthropist, our sort of behind the curtain philanthropist, a little bit about where this came from. So I am a relationship being. And in my journey as a fundraiser, which has been about a 30-year journey, it was often about knowing people. The people came first. The work I was doing was sort of secondary to understanding who they were and what was important to them. So this methodology came from intuition, not by design. So it came from the intuition. And in fact, always was curious, always curious. I've been described as being a very curious person about how things work. So that curiosity led me to wanting to understand the mind of the philanthropist so that I can be a better coach. You can be better fundraisers by understanding what they're the most passionate about. I say all the time, ask them, ask them, ask them. I believe that we as fundraisers have a very strong cord of apology, apologetic, not so comfortable talking with people about their money, not so comfortable really getting at the roots of how they feel about their giving. That's a whole other conversation around unapologetic fundraising. So I call us the do-gooders of the world. What do we have to apologize for? Clean water, electricity, healthy social, mental health skills, literacy. I mean, pick your nonprofit and what are we apologizing for? You know, we are the conduits to have people do good with their resources. So I like to say turning coin into fire, and fire can light up the world. So there's a whole lot around why we think we're apologizing. And I want us to get courageous, because we really don't have anything to apologize for. And we are the conduits for the good work that individuals can do with their resources. So these donor discovery interviews, I actually did 4 last week, where I would be one-on-one, me, the fundraiser, and the philanthropist on a Zoom. I am conducting the donor discovery while we're all together, asking questions and learning. When we're finished with the discovery, there are themes that surface. The donors will tell us their themes about what's important in their giving. The themes lead us to connecting to the action of your nonprofit. We can connect everything, but if your nonprofit needs a computer lab, but the donor tells you they're into mental health and animal welfare, do not sell them a computer lab. Sell them a service dog. And if you have one, if you don't have one, don't get one. But mental health and animal welfare is not a computer lab. We tend to go to the donor with what we need and neglect what the donor is most passionate about. There is sell, tell, and convince, which is transactional. And then there is, how can I connect your passions with the action of our nonprofit? That is transformational. So as I go on this journey, and where I built these skills was in the field. And one of the best things that ever happened in my career was my partnership with Bradley Lay. For my entire long career, we worked together in Dallas, Texas as colleagues. Bradley has gone on to become a retired philanthropist and still community advocate. And he's in my top right. Bradley and I will walk through a donor discovery, but everyone on the call also benefits from the fact that he is a professional, has been and is. He'll come out of retirement any minute now to really make a good, no, he says, no, not coming out of retirement. Okay, he's going to stay in retirement and do these little, educational tools with me, please God, where he is now going to share with us, as I ask the questions, the journey of his philanthropy. So Bradley has a career that has been the CEO of major nonprofits, and really cares deeply also about the donor and the relationships with the donor. So I believe for this group, he is a perfect partner for this conversation. So Bradley, I'm gonna jump in with you. The first thing we always begin with is thanking the individual for taking the time. I know your time is precious, and very much appreciate that you've taken the time to meet. If it's in person, team, you want to ask how much time they have. And if it's on a Zoom, you have scheduled an allotted Zoom time. If it's in person, you want to know how much time you have to spend with the individual. I will always say, how long have you set aside for this meeting? Now, when it is someone who is retired, they might say, I got all day for you, in which case I don't have all day. So then I'll say, how is an hour? Let's start with an hour. So I just want to give you sort of those guardrails on when we are meeting in person, so that you know and qualify how much time we have. Our Zoom for today is set for an hour, so it's perfect, and we'll have time to take questions, but really get that out in front so that you don't get to the end of an hour and go, oh my God, are we out of time? Qualify it first. So qualify your time with the individual. And Bradley, thank you. You want to tell everybody where you are, where you're situated in the world?
Sure. We are in Cuenca, Ecuador, going on our just over 3 years down here, and young retirees traveling the world, enjoying life. Still doing some volunteer work on a few keyboards that I care about for some organizations, and giving money away and doing fun things. It's a good life. We're very fortunate.
Amen. Amen. Okay, the first question I always love to ask is, where did you learn to give?
I have a real good memory of this, actually. And I don't suppose that everyone here is Jewish or connected to the Jewish community in any way. But that's where I learned. And it was actually, I remember third grade, I started Hebrew school, which is sort of the hazing ritual of Jewish life. You get to go every afternoon after school for a couple of days a week, to do more schooling. And I remember I started late and came from a non-observant, non-knowledgeable family. We just, were culturally Jewish. But I remember getting dropped off and going into Sylvia Levitsky, blessed memory. She was my third grade Hebrew school teacher. And we're sitting in a circle for class, and she starts to hand around a little box and says, "This is for tzedakah." And I had never heard that word, and I had no idea what that was. And kids started putting coins in this little box, and I didn't have any coins. And I went to my parents after my mom picked me up, and I said, "I'm supposed to bring coins." And I couldn't even pronounce the word. And we figured out what it was. And thereafter, I remember being in the car getting dropped off and always going through the ashtray of my mom's car for coins to bring in with no real understanding of what it was. But I knew that I was supposed to bring coins in every Tuesday and Thursday from my mom's ashtray. So that's my very vivid memory of giving, the very first time of giving charity.
And Sylvia, you remember Sylvia. Why
Sylvia,
do you...
Mrs. Levitsky to you.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Why do you give today? Why do you give?
Oh, listen, if I have to explain to people why they need to care about other people, then they're probably not people I want to be around. It's sort of intrinsic for me that things I care about, that's general stuff. I certain causes I care deeply about. But in general, the idea of taking care of others is sort of just hardwired into what I do. And I think that's true for most other people who give. There's always an ego piece to it potentially and other motivations, but at its core, I think everyone has to have some regard that they want to help other people as opposed to a new boat or a new car or in addition to those things. So that's why.
And how do you choose sort of how to entertain a new philanthropy? Like if somebody wants to bring you a new project or program, how do they approach you? And is it sort of systematic or is it just something that you get from your heart? Like how does somebody approach you with a new project or program?
So it's not systematic for us in how we give. We don't have like an RFP process for a foundation, for example. It generally comes from either things I've entertained or causes I've started to care about and learn about, or more often it's someone I know who reaches out to me, which I have gotten better and better at saying no to, which has not been easy. I don't like to say no to people in general with my time, with our money. I mean, we generally like to say yes if we can. But what I've gotten better at is saying no to the initial request. And if it's not done well, that's even better. It makes it easier. And then there's the old adage, if you ask for money, you get advice. And if you ask for advice, you get money. And I've gotten very good at giving advice to people as another way of saying no when people ask me for things. And then if it's a friend, listen, we give a lot of, small checks away to a lot of causes for every gala where someone's honored. I mean, it's just something you have to do. When a friend says, I'm doing this dinner, will you send in a check, or I'm being honored, and you just do it. Now, I've not been honored yet, but I cannot wait till the day when I get to call for payback and get all that money back for some other cause that I care a lot more about than, the causes that my friends care about. But that's just part of life.
When you say not done well, can you sort of qualify what you mean when it's not done well? And this is important, like it's done well or it's not done well.
Yeah. I have one experience that comes to mind very clearly. I was working in Dallas and I was a donor to my alma mater, my university. And one of the development professionals would come to Dallas every year and, call to meet with donors. And I was one of those people, and it was never the same person. It was a fairly low level development role. So it was always sort of revolving door, or people were up and out. But this gentleman called me and asked if I could make time to see him. I said, sure. I said, here's where we're going to go for breakfast. And of course I paid. I'm the donor. I'm going to pay for breakfast. We go, we spent an hour. He gave me the folder. He went through all the great things that were happening at my university. The folder had lots of information in it that at some point I'm sure I read after the fact. And at the end of the hour, I went to go pay, and we left. And he didn't ask to renew my gift, to increase my gift. He didn't ask for anything. And the vice president of institutional advancement at university is a dear friend. We talked, and I had the chance to talk to her, and I said, your development professional came, we spent an hour, we had a very nice time, we had a good breakfast, and never asked for any money. And she quickly rectified that situation as a storied professional. But it was a waste of an hour. Like if he could just sent me the folder, I would have read it. I do my homework. And so here we spent this hour, perfectly nice guy who I saw that one time and never saw again. And he never asked for any money. And all he had to do was say, you're an associate, which is you get $1,000 a year for every year that you're out of school. That's the goal. Like, you keep increasing as you're able. And I had been an associate, and he never said, it was the easiest ask in the world. Just go up $1,000 for the next year to continue being an associate, unless they had something bigger to contemplate. But that's what I remember being I felt my time was wasted, is what I felt. And I didn't like that.
Great point. Okay. We're not there to waste time. During a discovery conversation, we will not solicit, not. Don't be disrespectful of the request that was made to do a discovery conversation by clouding it with the ask at that time. I will speak to you about when the ask comes, but not during the sort of excavation of the passion. We stay true to our word, and we're not soliciting at that time. But this lunch was clearly set up as a solicitation. And that lunch being set up at the solicitation meant that it was a little bit irresponsible, or the fundraiser felt uncomfortable with making the ask. So we'll talk about that. I did learn from a colleague that if you're uncomfortable about the ask, you don't know enough about the donor. Because knowing enough about the donor should absolutely take you to a level of, and that is art, like this, and science, hatch. So knowing enough about the donor is the art and science. One without the other is not going to give you a full picture. Together, you're going to get the full picture. So, so Bradley, when you talk about the races or the honorees, that is transactional. They 100%. Call you. Is there a comment on your bucket for transactional and then a bucket for transformational? Do you parcel it out in your mind that when I get to X thousands in transactional, I tell them I've given all my transactional gifts? Do you have like amounts in each bucket, or is this sparking a thought that maybe you would in the future?
No, I mean, I fortunately have, jettisoned lots of friends, but no, I'm kidding. I still have lots of friends, but no, I mean, it's the transactional stuff is just not consequential. It ends up being, a few $1,000s a year in 180 and 360 and $500 increments generally. So it's not terribly large. People don't think to reach out to me that way, which I appreciate sometimes. So that's it's not a consequence to me, but I could see and have seen where it could be, depending upon the circles you run in. And usually the wealthier you are, the more generous you are, the higher levels you're giving for those transactional gifts with friends who are trading money with you. I am not in that league. And so it affords a higher percentage for more thoughtful giving.
Yes, terrific. So here's a comment too. Bradley could be giving $180 in a transactional gift to a cause. Has the cause used any data on this donor to determine his giving levels in other places? So we have potentially a $180 donor that has the capacity to give 4- and 5-figure gifts. Have we done that research? This is where I go back to the crowdfunding conversation of the $100 donor who sits on a foundation that gives away $1 million a year. You all have them hiding in plain sight. Your 180 donor in a transactional gift, because it was a gala, an honoree, a crowdfunding campaign, very nice. When you think you're finished, I'm here to tell you, you've only just begun. because Bradley is hiding in plain sight for any of these. We're not turning him in, any of us, but he's right there in front of them with proper stewardship and cultivation. So just note that you have those donors that are examples like he's discussing. They're giving to you in a transactional way. Understanding more about their capacity gives you a transformational journey. So what is the most meaningful gift you've ever given, Bradley? The most meaningful?
The most meaningful would probably be to the summer camp that I've been committed, was part of its founding staff and on the board for a long time, just rotated off a couple years ago. And one of the few ongoing sort of commitments, including a legacy commitment that I made 10 years ago, which is, when I didn't have as much resource and it's a percentage of our estate. So they're doing a lot better by us, and God willing, I'll live a long time. The market keeps doing what it's done the past 6 months, and the camp will be very good a long time from now. But my camp support is meaningful to me. My largest gift historically on an annual basis was to the Jewish Federation in the community that I worked and ran. I always used to say it was my most significant gift, but not my most passionate gift. Which I think is sort of how Jewish Federation gifts go, or United Way gifts, anything like that. They're sort of important, very important, but not always the most, hands-on exciting, sort of heartstringy to give. But the camp is definitely, my summer camp is where, I think I feel most passionate about the gifts that we make.
So when I ask donors this question, what is the most meaningful gift? They always say the amount or the place. Because 9 times out of 10, the largest amount is not the most meaningful gift. I have a philanthropist who told me about the trumpet that he gave to a student in a school he built in Africa. Okay, built the school. But I asked him the most meaningful gift, and he told me the trumpet. So I'm like, why? Why was the trumpet? And I'll get to Bradley on why the camp, but why the trumpet? And he said, because this child was bullied. And I was bullied. So there's an underdog thing here when he says the trumpet for the kid who was bullied in school. I was bullied. Do you hear how much we get to understand about the philanthropist? Not the school I built is not the most meaningful. And it's often that the most meaningful. I have had more people tell me that the money they gave to a colleague that fell upon hard times, the cash, was most meaningful, although not the largest. So Bradley, why is the camp the most meaningful?
I think some of the best friends I had in life, truly, and I only went as a staff member. I never we couldn't afford to go to overnight sleepaway camp, candidly, when I was growing up. So I went as a staff member, and the best friends in my life are among the best friends of my life were from that experience and that time, and it was transformational for me. And I know the impact it has on the 500 kids that get to go there every summer at great expense, and the requirement for a lot of scholarship to make that happen too, because it's an expensive proposition. So the idea that I can support that, and just as an aside, so that the camp called me in January or December to make an extraordinary gift for a waterfront improvement project that they wanted to do, and they wanted it done by April or May because camp started 3 weeks ago. So they wanted it done, and they needed to raise a few $100,000 very, very quickly because they had this opportunity. And their development director, who I'm friends with, asked me, and I said, Sharon, I went to camp as a staff member for 9 years, and I never went in that lake once because there was not a shower close enough to get me into that lake. Like, I was never going to do that. And the waterfront was meaningless to me. Like, I was more interested in the air conditioning inside the bunks because that was luxurious and comfortable. And so I said to her, I'm not giving you anything for the waterfront. I don't care about the waterfront, but I'm going to give you X, and you can use it for whatever you want. If you need it for the waterfront, go for it. But if it's better for scholarship, for annual support, whatever, I'll just give you my annual gift plus increase. But you use it for what you want, but the waterfront was not what I cared about, going back to like sort of donor passion. And she knew I would give something to the camp no matter what, and I do care about it. And if they want to use it for waterfront, let them. She ended up using it for annual support because, you know, that's a little harder to raise for than a quick capital project. But it was just an example of, you know, if she knows me well, but she should have known, like, the waterfront was not where I was at. You want to talk about like paving the roads at the camp and putting in escalators, like, I'm all in. But
What do you see? Okay, so what I want to say is, you see, the waterfront was the computer lab.
yeah,
They came to Bradley as a seasoned philanthropist for the camp with a need that they had,
Yeah.
disregarding what was the donor's passion. And because he is a philanthropist, wants to support the camp, he's in, but not for the same amount as if they came to him to pave the bay and put in the escalator. He's like, I'm all in for the air conditioning, right? So all you have to do is know him and talk to him about the creature comforts that are needed. And that's the ask. Probably would have been a little bit more, because you see, he self-solicited the amount for that other gift. That became self-solicited. So it's really a great example of, you know, he was not passionate about the waterfront. You know, we don't have to be passionate about the whole camp. There is an organization in Denver, and what they need to know is that I care about it because of my grandson. I don't care about the whole organization. I mean, sure, yeah, it's great. But if you ask me for a gift to the whole organization, that's an A type of request. The type of request you need to do is, do you know what Negev is doing in this program? Here are some pictures. And I'm like, and here's what it costs to run the program. It's understanding the passion and getting to the heartstrings, which takes me to a question, Bradley. I always like to say, we in this world are thinkers and feelers. Okay, Myers-Briggs, I'm sure there's a lot beyond Myers-Briggs that we are thinkers and feelers. Why does it matter to us as fundraisers? Because you do not want to speak to feelers as if they're thinkers with data analytics, reports, impact charts, budgets. Don't do it, because they don't even know what you're talking about. And you don't want to speak to the thinkers with stories. I had a client that had this giant aha moment. He's like, oh my gosh, I just started telling him story after story after story. And I saw that his eyes were like rolled back in his head, because he doesn't want that. He wants the impact, the budget, the financials. He wants to know the thinking part of this. I have been known to take an email and say, what do you think about this? And go, delete, 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 delete. How do you feel about this? You have to listen carefully to your donors, because they are going to reveal thinking or feeling. I'm not 100% sure on Bradley. So why don't you clarify that? Thinking or feeling, probably both sounds like in it.
yeah, I'm complicated that way, even with Myers-Briggs and with True Colors. Like, I was always plaid, and, you know, my TNF are always mixed. I like both, because I want to feel good about it, but I also want to know I'm having impact. But having been a professional for a while, I always, my belief is that some of the thinking, more so than the feeling, is used as an excuse. That people want to see budgets and charts and numbers and outcomes and measurables, but they really, at the end of the day, use that often. And there are true thinkers out there who want to look at this stuff and make very targeted, you know, investments the way they do for their own, you know, portfolios. But those are, I think, very few and far between. I think a lot of the people that ask for the thinking stuff often will use that as an excuse to give or not give. That's my experience. But I'm definitely both, and not too much of either. Like, I don't want to be inundated with, you know, heartstringy stories and made to feel bad if I'm gonna say no or do less, to the point that, you know, don't beat me up emotionally, but and also provide me just enough to know that my gift matters, which is the thinking part. And, you know, I'm the great donor because I don't, you know, I think overhead is not a bad thing for an organization. I think it's essential, you know, and you spend money to make money. And if, you know, we were for-profit organizations, you know, we'd have risk capital and we'd try things and we'd fail and we'd still be okay and have investors. And we know in nonprofits, those things are not always true. So I'm like the donor people generally like, because I understand the need for all that stuff.
That reminds me, Bradley, I think we had a t-shirt when we worked together that said, I am overhead. And
it was after the Dan Pallotta TED Talk, which everyone I'm sure has seen. And it said, we're overhead. And it was during our budget presentations. Yeah. People had to see. Anyway, I could go on about that.
We wore them to the board meeting. We wore the shirts to the board. It was Sputzpedick. We did that. That was courageous and moxie, whatever. Okay, habit and guilt. There are donors who say to me, I give because I feel guilty if I don't. This is a habit. This is a gift I give out of habit. And I have a donor that I did discovery with, and she is giving 4-figure gifts out of habit and guilt. And her comment to me is help. It doesn't feel good because they don't know me. And the way I'm solicited for $5,000 is by text once a year, want to give again. So I'm helping that philanthropist with the language of have the fundraiser work just a little bit harder to understand you a little bit better, because $5,000 is a significant gift. And also ask that fundraiser, how many donors do you have at $5,000? And if the answer is 20, 25, even 30, they're all transactional like that. So I'm trying to also empower the philanthropists to challenge us to really get a little bit better at this. Then it's June, and you give in June, and do you want to give your $5,000 again? Come on, we could do better. So Bradley, can you comment on this guilt and habit thing? What keeps you in it because of habit, or have you found a way to excavate yourself from those experiences in order to free up more money for the things you care the most about?
I think I give both from, well, all areas, guilt and habit, and also passion and excitement, energy. And I will tell you that over the past 4 years, since I retired 5 years ago, we moved 3 years ago, and then Alex, my husband, he retired 3 years ago, and we all moved. But I have been able to reallocate funds significantly. Part of it is a geographic change, which has been very helpful. If you move out of the country, it's amazing how many people you can lose along the way. It's very helpful. But we've reallocated a lot. So the habit and guilt gifts are token by our standards, and enough just to get us on some lists at these organizations, where the other giving has gone up with those reallocated resources. And then this year, even more so, we've reallocated even more significantly because of world events. And those sort of event-based changes, whether it was moving in our case, or what happened since October, we've been able to use that to adjust. And those gifts that are guilt and habit, we'll keep. We have longstanding commitments and sort of understanding, but again, they're not our most passionate gifts, and now they're not even remarkably close to our largest gifts. I mean, they're getting smaller and smaller. And by the way, the minute you get smaller, I've experienced as a donor, that you might get a look or a call when you go down the first time, and then after that, they sort of abandon you, which for us has been good. For the organization is bad, right? Because presumably I'm recoupable if I'm reconnected in some way. And I, as someone who's identified my own areas that I care about, I'm not looking to be recouped, but I know I could be. So I'm not reaching out to them angry that they're not calling me directly or talking to me. I'm fine with it. Now I have more money to give to things that I care about more, that I've excavated myself, or that I've been connected to.
But hear that from the philanthropist, right? My giving is going down. They're not calling me. I could be recoupable. I don't know what you've done in the past 3 years that might spark a passion in me. And that recovery journey, again, art and science, gave some year, not this year. Glybunt gave some year, not this year. Sort it, analyze it, data mine it. You can data mine it with Hatch. You can also do what I call the remedial and sort by high-end zip code in your city and look at gave some year, not this year, and sort. You might, I know, depending on the size of your campaign and the number of donors, I know your churn out is significant. I know it is. And it comes by intuition. And then I pull the data and I'm like, your churn is significant. So you could tell me you have $1 million in new gifts last year, and I'm going to say to you, how much did you lose? And if you told me you lost $1.2 million, but you got $1 million, in my mind, you're 200,000 in the hole, but you're not doing the work to stay in that retention and that upgrade because you're happy that you raised $1.2 million in new dollars. So this whole idea of connected and, like how I could be cultivated to be re-engaged. the donors say over and over, I give my transformational gifts because I am involved, connected, and engaged. And they say it in no uncertain terms. Transformational is involved, connected, engaged. All the time. And when somebody comes to me and they say, you know, well, they're wealthy, I'm like, money does not equal giving it to you or us. It's cute to think that. Or how many times I've been told about Michael and Susan Dell in Austin. I'm like, you know, they're not going to give you money. So that's enough. Forget about it. Or as a friend Mitchell says, with forget about it as one word. Having money and giving to you does not create a transformational gift to your organization. Engagement, involvement, and connection do. So Bradley, where do you see your philanthropy in the future?
I mean, I have more time than I've ever had to do volunteer work. And I'm becoming a better volunteer. I'm a much better professional than I am been a volunteer or lay leader, but I'm becoming better at it. Serving on a few boards now at some fairly high levels and enjoying that experience and being able to help professional colleagues. So my giving has moved over there. We don't have children. We have two very wonderful spoiled dogs. And in case you were wondering, dogs cost a hell of a lot less than children. And, you know, our entire estate is going to charity, assuming our mothers, you know, who are alive, God, you know, predecease us, you know, but live a long time from now. But assuming we live the way we're supposed to live, our entire estate goes to charity. And we also have this philosophy. There's a book on it. Don't read it. It's not well written, but the philosophy is very good, called Die with Zero. And so part of our goal is to give more and more money away each year because we don't need an estate except for the charitable commitments we've made. And according to our planners, you know, we can't spend, you know, I suppose we could fly private, which we don't do ever, but we could, you know, we can't really spend enough, you know, in our regular course of living and what travel we do and the things we enjoy, that we're going to have money at the end in addition to what we're giving away. So, you know, each year it's a conversation about what's our travel budget. We know what our fixed living expenses are and what do we have to give away using our donor advised fund and contributing to it each year. So I see our giving, you know, going up, you know, again, as things continue hopefully to grow. And we give disproportionately more than our peers because, again, we don't have the expenses associated with needing to leave an estate to children or take care of children or raise children into adulthood, pay for college. We help my nephew, you know, we pay for his, you know, room and board. He has a free ride at college, you know, so we help our family in lifetime, which is a blessing to be able to do. And God willing, give a lot more money away as, you know, we get more established and comfortable with what that feels like.
So, which is beautiful. So on behalf of all the nonprofits, you know, it's beautiful, but so thank you. What, if you had to tell us a quote about your giving, what would that quote be?
She didn't give me the questions in advance. This is a real discovery conversation because I would have thought about it. A quote about giving. I don't know that I have. I don't know. I'm trying to think. Give me just a second. Yeah, I don't have a quote.
Okay, now you think.
I don't know a pithy quote. I have a 6-word memoir. That was fun. I did that once.
Yeah, we did that together. So,
Yeah.
okay, so Mike, I had a quote last week. Giving is a blessing. Blessing comes with obligation. We have to rebalance the world. That was a quote last week. I also had a quote from a philanthropist in Seattle. Purses have no luggage racks. What am I taking with me? So it's been a variety. I give with my soul. So I'm not bringing data and impact reports to the person who tells me they give with their soul. Many philanthropists say, good question. I want to think about that.
Mm-hmm. I will think about it. It is a good question.
Okay, you get it to Motion Sim. Motion Sim will get it to the So anything surprise you besides that you didn't have a pithy statement like that about your giving, but you will. Anything surprise you about the conversation?
You know, I think it just forces me to think about the way I give in a way that I hadn't necessarily thought. Like I I haven't thought about Sylvia Levitsky. You know, I don't think about her on a regular basis. My third grade Hebrew school teacher. You know, and I've not thought about, you know, my camp as my most sort of meaningful gift. I know it is, but I don't think about it that way. So I think it's interesting to have to, not have to, but to want to answer your questions and remind myself some of the things that I sort of know intuitively, but haven't put words to or thought about actively, you know, until this conversation.
So just to have everybody on the call note, the philanthropists almost always comment like this. Wow, I had not given thought to my philanthropy in this way. Well, I never really thought about that. They've been on autopilot, and autopilot might be guilt, habit, passion, autopilot nonetheless. So what we're doing in this excavation of passion is this is a good thing, okay? Nothing to apologize for. This is a good thing to create this level of awareness that the philanthropist has about their philanthropy. I like to say small talk for us is this. You know, I can walk into any room for any event and there's a lot, you know, we could talk about Bridgerton. I mean, dear God, the marketing of that Netflix is unbelievable. I could walk in and talk about that gown that was on that person but I don't need to, because I'm going to say to them, what's the most meaningful gift you've ever given? So when we're doing donor discovery, we can do it two ways. We can do it as an interview that takes about 40 minutes, or we can pepper every conversation we ever have all the time with anyone with these type of conversations. I am an unapologetic fundraiser. You show up at a dinner party in the right, you know, labels, and I'm going to ask you about your giving. You know, you know, if wealth has a look, and I know that off brands and people copy, I know there's real Chanel and fake Chanel. I know. But if money has a look, I'm after the people that are after that look. And I want to know about what? I don't want to know where they bought it or when they went on their trip, where they got it. I want to know about their giving. I want to know, where did you learn to give? I want to know about your philanthropy. If you're in those rooms at those events, you're giving something. Use your precious small talk time to small talk about your lane, which is philanthropy. So get to a place of such unapologetic comfort, which I have run through this world in that unapologetic comfort of like, this is what I want to know about, because it makes me better, stronger, faster as a professional. And I have the world as my research study, because if you're honest and, Bradley used to call me, I am disarming. If you are honest, Bradley said, you're disarming. So I'm like, if you're honest and you are disarming, why not? It's honest. I want to know these things. I am being true to what I want to know, and small talk is fine. I am just recommending that this is our small talk, because it will make us better professionals. Now, here's what I learned about Bradley in this conversation, which I hope you did too. We are a people-based philanthropist. People. Not only did he say the people, the friends, the people, the friends. What happens when I do these interviews is I take notes and I circle themes. And in this theme, I have people and friends and family circled. People, friends, family, people. People is very, very heartfelt from this space, because not only is it people, friends, and family, but it is specifically Mrs. Levinsky to me. It is
Levitsky.
Levitsky. Third grade, he's like 8. He's not 8 anymore. But this person, these people, the friends, the family, do you understand that the course we go with this philanthropist is the people that will be impacted by this, the friends that they will glean from this experience? I'm not sure what the project is top of mind Monday, as Sim noted. I don't know the project right away, but I know that in your nonprofits, there is a project that is the integration of this Venn diagram: people, friends, family, community. not the beachfront. We also know that he cares about creature comforts and that there are pets in his life. So people, friends, family, we got it. We hear it. We have to pay attention to it so that we don't meet with Bradley next time and bring him a proposal for a computer lab. It is nowhere in this conversation. And he might like technology. I know he likes technology, but it's not where we went with all of this. So don't go there. When we meet with this philanthropist the next time, the conversation goes like this. As a result of our conversation, I have taken the liberty to pull a few of our projects to show you, to see if you're interested. Now, what's the level of the interest? You go to Hatch. And you look and see where is their current giving patterns and how much are they giving. I had a nonprofit tell me they asked the donor for $250,000, and I said, why? They said, well, because they have a lot of money. I'm like, that is like a bad reason. Now let's look at what they give. Their average gifts were $25,000. Why do they think they would have gotten $250,000? Ask them for 25 and maybe you would get it, but ask them for 250 and you got 18. Because that was a crazy number for this donor. So find out what they're most passionate about, find out what their giving patterns are, and then meet with them and say, as a result of our conversation, I have taken the liberty to craft these proposals. This happened with a donor in town. We put $15,000 on the number and we put 3 things. And she said to us, me and the fundraiser, she said, this is exactly the right arena for my giving. And it was just like, yes, because we circled the wagons. We did the art part, which was the donor discovery. We did the science part, which capacity and current giving. And then we went to her the way any financial planner would come to somebody with a $15,000 investment opportunity with a document. Let's please move past the mom and pop shop that we're in, which takes us to ask somebody for $50,000 or $100,000 as like, you know, coffee, and you're going to give me 100. A financial services person would never have $100,000 investment with something. And if you don't know what your something is, we can help you with what do these proposals look like and what is the template for these proposals. But let's elevate our games to match what the donor is doing in their personal life with their money. Oh, Moshe, yeah, thanks. And I want to be mindful of everyone's time, and I have an appointment here. So to that end, I really hope that everybody gleaned from this that there is a human-centered way to move from sell, tell, and convince to excavate the passion of the donor and align the art and science. And if anybody has questions unanswered, I put my email in the link just so I can answer your questions. And I want to encourage you to, in the most courageous way, go out and own the stories around the philanthropists that are really making this world a better place. Because that is the best of what we do, is learning about just making this world a better place. Bradley, you know how I feel. Thank you so much. And everyone else, really the benefit of this conversation, I feel very grateful. Thank you, Moshe and Sim and Rachel, for everything you've done. And shout out to my business manager, Max Kramer, being here to listen to the whole story. So thank you so much, everyone. And on to next, Moshe.